listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome into the GM Shuffle. I'm Geoff Schwartz alongside Marty Hurney. We are presented by DraftKings. The DraftKings crown is yours. And playing a wager on the NFL draft there on the DraftKings app, Marty. We'll get to the NFL draft in a little bit. We'll talk defensive linemen and linebackers today as we go through our series, previewing the top of every position. Our mock draft 2 weeks away, Marty, for the first episode of our mock draft. We will have every pick covered for you. We'll give you our ideas and where we think is going to happen and some movement in the draft. We'll talk all about that on today's show. But also, before we get there, Marty, some news and notes, some odds and ends. National football, the news never stops. Early last week, we got an article about Jalen Hurts, Eagles quarterback. It did not paint him in the best of light. To summarize it, essentially it was loud. Jalen Hurts is not really improving as a quarterback, right? Think there's limitations in his game and where the Eagles go from here, Marty. What was your general thoughts about sort of the idea of the limitations around Jalen Hurts' game, specifically really lack of adjustments and not being able to really change much of what he does well?
Well, there's a couple things, and this is Jalen Hurts has always been a hard guy for me to kind of get a real good read on, Geoff, because when he was at Alabama and I went to a practice and to look at Calvin Ridley, I think was the wide receiver at that time, and Hurts had gone. Hurts was 16-2 at Alabama and left for Oklahoma because Tua came in. But the guy had won with them and they had success. I'm at this practice. I'm asking this guy about Calvin Ridley. And, he made a brief comment, look who's throwing to him. And I think the evaluation of Jalen Hurts at Alabama seemed to be that he was a very good player, but he had, you definitely had to put a certain scheme around him. He goes to Oklahoma, and honestly, Geoff, I really didn't expect much from Jalen Hurts when he left Alabama. I went to Oklahoma Pro Day. He might have had one of the best pro days I've ever seen. Him and CeeDee Lamb just lit it up. He was throwing deep balls, the energy in the building. I said, man, this kid can play. He comes in, and he has won a Super Bowl. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. I think a lot of this, it's very complicated. I think there's a lot of sides to this, Geoff, but I also know that when you win, the old saying, you're never as good as they say you are and you're never as bad as they say you are, applies to the NFL more than anything I've ever been involved in. And I think this is a perfect example of, there were a lot of things that weren't right with the Eagles last year. And I think that Jalen Hurts, obviously, as the quarterback, and you're not winning, or in the Eagles' case, just meeting expectations because they have been so good. I think that it always goes to the head coach, the general manager, head coach, the quarterback. They're the first three guys you go to. And I think that Jalen Hurts definitely has shown he's got the skill set, Geoff, to be a winning quarterback in this league. He won a Super Bowl. That is so hard to do. I just think that right now, Nick Sirianni really has to do a good look at what the problems were last year. And I don't think it was just Jalen Hurts. I think it was really a broad issue as far as it even carried over the defense, I thought. So I think that Nick Sirianni has to do a good job. They brought in a new offensive coordinator in Sean Mannion. This is his first time being an offensive coordinator. But I had always heard how smart he was as a quarterback, a backup quarterback mostly. But this is his third year as a coach. He's going to come in, and right now, I think the pressure is more on Nick Sirianni than it is Jalen Hurts.
So I do want to talk about Sean Mannion because that's an important part to my general thesis about the Eagles this season. But getting back to sort of the sourcing of this article, Marty. So there's some good in there, right? There's like, hey, Jalen Hurts is not what people think he is, and there's some bad in there with team sources saying he's rigid and sort of uncompromising, and the personality doesn't fit sometimes, and there's stuff about him changing play calls. I mean, so there's good and bad in this article, right? The question I have for you is the timing of this and sort of how this gets out, right? So the timing is interesting because it's after free agency, but before the draft, before obviously workouts, even, obviously workouts for Eagles will start for 2 more weeks. So just the timing of this, like, why do you think this came out now? And when you hear the term team source, is that Howie Roseman? Is that Jeffrey Lurie? Is that Kevin Petulu got fired. Like, who are the team sources in this?
All the above or none of the above. That's what drives you crazy when you're a general manager and an article comes out with team sources that just blow you up for a week and create the distraction that this has created. I don't know whether the timing was anything, Geoff. I don't think anybody picked it and said, okay, this is the time. But this is a down period, and people are saying, okay, what are the stories we need to go into about this coming year? And the Eagles obviously are a top story because they're a top team in this league. I mean, Jalen Hurts, the only time he hasn't made the playoffs is his rookie year under Doug Peterson in 2020. So, obviously you're going to go and you're going to look at the Eagles and the issues and Jalen Hurts. But I just think that I keep going back to what Bobby Beathard always taught me. If a guy does something once, then he's capable of doing it multiple times with good coaching. Jalen Hurts has proven he can win, and he can win it all in this league. So I think the talent is there. Now, do you have to have a special scheme and utilize his strengths? Yeah, that's coaching. So I don't know. I just think that quarterbacks are too hard to find. They found Jalen Hurts. Got to do Super Bowls 1-1. He's got a skill set. I just think that this is the thing where the Eagles have to really get back to saying, what is our identity and how are we going to maximize our talent? Because there were a lot of issues there, and it went way past the quarterback last year, I thought.
I'm fascinated by why people have sort of determined that Jalen Hurts is sort of the guy to go after, right? Like, he's had more postseason success than Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and he's not as good as those guys. I get it, but it seems like those guys do not get these articles written about them. And these ideas, there's certainly people that think Lamar Jackson, has not played as well in these big spots. And Jalen Hurts, really, it's certain times the playoffs hasn't played as well, but then the Super Bowl has been great, both Super Bowls, right? So, like, obviously there's something there in those big games where he's doing a very good job to lead his team to success. And you mentioned it's important, right? He's had a lot of offensive coordinators. Certainly been true. And this is the argument I make against hiring a non-offensive coach when you have sort of a franchise quarterback, right? Is that you cycle through, and Sirianni isn't quote unquote offensive coach, but doesn't call plays. And we know that's not really his strong suit, is that you lose your offensive coordinator quite often, right? And then you have to build a new offense around someone else. And we'll talk about Charmaine, I promise you, just a second here. But you build your offense around the quarterback, right? So if he's not good at something, then you don't do it. And you build things around. And this is where the article talks about sort of the idea that they really had a limited offense because Hurts didn't want to do certain things. But then Hurts also sort of said, acknowledged that he would like to do more things. Like, there's a lot of he said, she said here, right? Where he said, where I don't know what to believe. I just know last year, Marty, the Eagles offense was very, very stagnant. They brought in Sean Mannion, who is his third year coaching, played quarterback in the NFL for many years, was a backup. He's in that, that Shanahan McVay tree, under center, lots of motion, lots of shifts. My biggest concern for Eagles this season is the offense, because the issues with lack of adjustments are certainly there with Jalen Hurts, right? And the former offenses he's been in. And there's been some tension, documented many times over now. With a new play caller, Marty, and with a quarterback that sometimes struggles to make adjustments, that feels like a recipe for disaster, especially early on, Marty, when you have a coach doing it for the first time, with a quarterback that's been acknowledged through multiple coaches to struggle with some of these things. Doesn't that feel to you, Marty, like there could be a problem this year for the Eagles offense?
Yeah, Geoff, if there was one thing in that article that bothered me about Jalen Hurts, it was the idea of, he didn't want to do these things. He was really against those things. Listen, that goes to the coach, right? I never asked my sons what they thought. Like, if you tell your kids to do something, that's what you want. You want him to do it. And I really think that's on the coach. So the first thing Sean Mannion has to do is come in and get a relationship with Jalen Hurts and really have give and take, but make it known that, listen, Jalen, I'm going to listen to everything you say, but when I'm making the calls, when I say we do something, we do something. And I think that when that's not there, that's where there's problems that go all through the offense, all through the team, because players want to be coached. They want to have somebody that can maximize their skill sets. And if there's that doubt there, I think it goes throughout the whole team. And, as far as Jalen Hurts getting the blame, again, that's part of the job. I mean, when you lose and you're a quarterback or you're at the top head coach, general manager, people are going to criticize you. And when you win, they're going to probably give you too much credit. I mean, Geoff, I remember back in the day when, I was general manager at the Panthers for like 2002 to 12, was let go, became the first guy that came back as a general manager with the same team in 17. But early on, I would be out and people would be saying nasty things. I mean, just nasty things about, where the team was. Then when Dave Gettleman came in, did a tremendous job. I'm a big fan of Dave's. They got to the Super Bowl, and I was outside, 2 blocks away from the stadium for one of the playoff games. I'm sitting out there, and people are going, Marty, Hurney, because I had drafted 10 or 11 guys that were on this team that was going to the Super Bowl. So, I've seen it, I've lived it, that you can go from the bottom to the top. It's all about whether you win or not, and that's what the Eagles have to do. You can't make this a bigger problem than it is. I do think that Jalen Hurts has shown the ability to be a very good winning quarterback in this league. Is he a win because guy or a win with guy? It doesn't matter to me. You've won with him. You've won the Super Bowl with him. So I think that really, to me, the focus this year, if I was Howie Roseman, is on the coaching staff and see what Nick Sirianni can do. If they do not do well, I think Nick Sirianni will be on the hot seat.
I don't know if there's a place to make this wager yet, Marty, but I would put some hard-earned monies on Nick Sirianni being fired after this season. I think that's where it's headed eventually. And I do want to discuss more about the Philly Eagles' future. I do think this is, could cause for very quickly. Have you ever had an article written, Marty, when you knew the source was down the hall from you and you just absolutely knew that was the case, but had to sort of suck it up?
Yeah, you never really know, but it doesn't do any good to make a big deal out of it.
Ignored it. Wow. I didn't expect that. I expected to go through the facility. Let's talk about Eagles very quickly, then we'll talk about Kirk Cousins signing the rest. Next, GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back here in the GM Shuffle. We'll get to you some pass rush breakdown of the NFL draft prospects. Potentially 3 of those guys drafted very early. There'll be some defensive linemen drafted at the end of the first round, top of the second round. We'll have you guys cover with our thoughts on those guys, Marty. To finish up our Eagles discussion here. So, we always sort of, I think, look for teams every year to implode. At least I do. And make some wagers accordingly. And when DraftKings puts all those win totals up, those alternate ones, I'll make sure to make one of those. The Eagles, to me, Marty, feel like an implode team. They're getting older at some positions that are important, right? Is Barkley going to have a bounce back year? I don't know. Part of that is the offensive line's getting older. A.J. Brown, there's more renewed talk. He's going to be traded after June 1st to the Patriots. Defensively, they've lost guys over the years. Still a really good unit. I trust McFangio. The Commanders, presumably better this year. Cowboys are going to be 8-9 sort of wins, right? John Harbaugh's now in the Giants. I just have a feeling, Marty, this is the team we're like, oh boy, 6-11 this year, 7-10 out of nowhere. It does feel like it could go that direction. New OC, Jalen Hurts sort of stuff hanging over, a couple O-line injuries. I don't know, man. I don't have a great feeling about Philly this year.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but they're still right now, to me, the class of the East. I mean, you have to look at it. And when I look at it, Geoff, they still had a pretty good season with the NFC East. I thought going into the season had the hardest schedule as far as, the out-of-conference schedule and the divisions inside the conference you play. I thought the NFC East had one of the hardest schedules. So I expect them to bounce back. When you say you expect them to implode, I think we have to look at this division. And, you said the Cowboys, and I do believe that the Cowboys could be one of those teams that make a major jump. Their offense obviously is one of the best in the league and can score a lot of points. If their defense gets better, okay, I can see there'll be a competition there. The Commanders, if Jane Daniels come back and stays healthy, they've gotten a lot faster and younger. I like what they've done in the offseason, so they should be better. And the Giants, I think, have talent. John Harbaugh might take a little bit, but they're going to be good. So that division's going to get stronger. So the Eagles are going to have a tougher division to kind of fight through. But right now, I've got to see it first, Geoff. I still think that they've done too much over the last 4 or 5 years with Jalen Hurts. I do have a lot of faith in Vic Fangio. And I just think that this is now, the spotlight is on Nick Sirianni. Can you get this offense fixed? We're assuming the defense will be fixed. And I'm not ready to say they're going to implode right now. This certainly is a critical season for them, but I still think they have too good an organization to really just implode.
If you like what you're hearing, here on the GM Shuffle, we do more VSiN Pro, betting splits, power rank, sharp analysis, all offers $9.90 first month. Go to VSiN.com, check out all the subscription options. All right, Marty, moving along to some other NFL news here. Kirk Cousins signs with the Raiders. It's reported a 5-year deal that was really a 1-year deal. Mike McCartney, did he build a new wing of his house just offer Kirk Cousins contracts? Because Mike McCartney, his agent, should be in the Business Hall of Fame here, continually getting these guaranteed contracts. 2 things here. Obviously, brought into mentor Mendoza. Well, Marty, why the 5-year structure? I don't understand this. Why don't you just pay him for 1 year and be done with it? I mean, they have a club option for years 2 and 3. You hope to not use that. Why would you want the club option? You just want to be able. Mendoza's your guy. I don't get it, man.
Spread the cap number out, I would think. I haven't looked at it closely.
Why would you want it? But okay.
Probably spreading that out.
Wouldn't you just want to eat that now in year 1 and just be done with it? Like, you don't want.
I would.
You don't want to be your quarterback moving forward, right? You hope that Cousins there 1 year and then Mendoza's good enough to take over into year 2. Now, the idea that they want Mendoza to sit, I get it, man. I do. It's the way the NFL used to be, but it never happens, Marty, right? Mendoza comes in. He's ready to play week 1. If he's ready to play week 1, if he truly is ready, and you've done this before, Cam Newton played week 1, you know, with other quarterbacks in your career, don't you play him week 1? Like, if he's ready to go, you play him, right? I mean, the Chiefs are like the only one in the recent history that really drafted a guy who was ready to play probably now, and they waited an entire year. But part of that was Alex Smith was really good still, right? And he has maybe his best season of his career with Mahomes sitting behind him. But if Mendoza's ready, you got to play him, right, Marty?
It depends. And I'll tell you, we'll go back to Cam Newton. You mentioned Cam. And Ron Rivera and I had a lot of conversations about, okay, do you start Cam right away? And basically what we did was, it's basically, if you think you have the talent around him, if you have the offensive line to protect him, you have enough skilled players to make some plays and get open and give him some targets to throw to, then you start him. But if you think your offensive line's not good enough, if you're just setting him up for failure, the worst thing you can do for a young quarterback is trot him out there and lose games at the start week after week, because it affects the confidence of the locker room and the young players. So, you know, you look at one of their part owners, Tom Brady. I mean, he came in and sat for a while, and who knows, he might be the guy saying, listen, there's nothing wrong with sitting a quarterback for a while and letting him learn. So I think to answer your question, Geoff, if you see him and you think he's ready to play and you're confident about the protection in front of him and the skilled players around him, then you play him and let him learn on the job. But if you have any doubts on that, you bring in Kirk Cousins, who there couldn't be a better mentor. And you know, we're laughing because Kirk Cousins has made more guaranteed money than any quarterback in his career other than Matt Stafford. I think he made more than Tom Brady. And, you know, he is a pocket passer. He's an accurate passer. He plays the game from the neck up. So he's the perfect guy that you want with a rookie quarterback in the room to help him and bring him along. So, you know, and if you can keep him for 2 or 3 years, Geoff, because you've got the quarterback at the rookie contract, then why not? If he's a help, if he's another coach for your young quarterback. So I get the signing. I think it was a good move by the Raiders. It does get them some flexibility. And I don't think you have to be in a hurry, especially when you're a team like the Raiders, to run him out. You're building a foundation. You're building a team for the future, not this year. So I think there's less pressure on the Raiders to play him right away if they feel he needs some time. And I think this was a really good signing for him.
It makes sense from the mentorship perspective. I always forget, and I think you're really right about this, right? Like the offensive line's a big part of this, right? And the offensive line's not ready. They've done a good job trying to improve the offensive line, obviously. Then sort of why let him get hit early in the career? And I totally understand that thought process. Transitioning to another NFL story here, Rams talented wide receiver Puka Nacua is reportedly in a rehab facility. He allegedly bit a woman. We know he's been on live streams and made anti-Semitic comments and anti-Semitic dances. And he's only 24 years old, Marty. And, buddy, I'm worried, man. 24 years old in a rehab facility already. Some signs of immaturity. The Rams have said they're not going to re-sign him until he shows some maturity. From a general manager perspective, Marty, what are your thoughts on how the Rams are handling Puka Nacua, and what would you do in the situation?
Well, obviously, I'm sure they've had tons of conversations with him, Les Snead and Sean McVay. But when they say maturing, it's really about good decision-making, Geoff. And that's what we're doing in the draft with all these guys. Okay, do these guys make good decisions or bad decisions? And I know he's young. And, when you're in the NFL, you're getting a lot of young players from all different ways of life. And they come in and they come into an atmosphere, an environment where look at all the attention Puka Nacua gets. So it's really, I don't know whether it's maturity or is it bad decision making because he's just got some issues that he has a problem with dealing with. And that's what you have to decide is, can we help him? Can we correct some of these things that he's done? And it's a hard question to answer. You're in the building with him every day. You have all the conversations with him, and I'm sure he wants to do the right thing. But it's just I would be worried in this situation. They have the best feel of it. They're doing everything they can to help him, and obviously you have to do everything to help a player like that because he's so important to you. But at some point, you just got to decide whether he is just not going to be able to get out of that habit of making bad decisions.
Another NFL wide receiver in news, Rashee Rice. The NFL found insufficient evidence to support a fine that violated the personal conduct policy. I think I'm surprised, but the NFL has been a league that likes to punish their players, and if they found no evidence, then there must be nothing there. I will say the NFL has sort of changed over the years. They've been, I think, on the side of punishing players before there's enough evidence. Now it seems like they might be going the other direction. But what do you make of the NFL finding no sufficient evidence here to punish Rashee Rice? I know conspiracy theories are abound about them protecting the Chiefs, which I still don't understand that thought process. But Rice will not be suspended at all here.
Yeah, I like this, Geoff. I mean, I like you're innocent until proven guilty. I like that they did their homework and looked into it. And as you say, I did. I got a little worried too that the NFL is very good at making very clear what is expected from players and coaches and staff members. And if you cross that line, they do discipline you. But I'm glad that they did the research and delved into this and decided that it wasn't worth a fine. As long as that happens every case, I'm fine with it. And they do a very good job. The NFL does a great job of really making it clear what's expected and then disciplining players or staff members when they do things that are not expected.
So this is not relatively new. It's a Goodell thing. Before Goodell, did Tagliabue just never punish players? Is that not a thing that happened? I don't remember that happening much ever until Goodell became commissioner.
Yeah, I think that the discipline got more public with the change, but there was still discipline under Tagliabue, and the expectations for player behavior, player conduct was still there.
All right, everyone. Are you guys ready to talk about arm length? So we're about to do it. We're going to talk about defensive ends. We're going to talk about arm length, the importance of it. We'll talk about why we talk about it so much, historical comps. We're going to cover it all. We're talking about defensive ends and pass rushers next. Dreams over. We're going to buy DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back here in the GM Shuffle to preview edge rushers, and maybe we'll touch on some linebackers doing some crossover work as well. Remember, you go back the last couple of weeks, we covered offensive linemen, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. We'll cover pass rushers today. Maybe we'll touch on some linebackers, and we'll hit linebackers and secondary pieces next week before we head into our mock draft here. Marty, let's just start at the top. This probably isn't the number one ranked pass rusher for everyone, but Rueben Bain from Miami is the one we talk about the most because of the arm length discussion. He has very short arms. And the reason why, guys, I mention this nearly every episode. It's worth mentioning again. If you're first time here, welcome. Appreciate you being here. You can subscribe for free on YouTube. Very easy. Just go subscribe for us. Is that we have historical comps, right? We have comps for all these players. And the measurements and the 40 times and the shuttle times, all this stuff go into the database. And you get an idea of, okay, this profile, this athletic profile, the player fits into this mold. We've seen this type of athlete before in the NFL, or we haven't seen this type of athlete before in the NFL. And for Rueben Bain, we have not seen a player that has his arm length have any success in the NFL, drafted as high as he has ever, Marty, right? Like since we've been keeping data. So he's the edge rusher from Miami. He's very explosive. He has a great motor. He's very short. His film is fantastic, Marty. He's great film, but his arms are very, very short. How much does that worry you?
There's a reason that there hasn't been a defensive end taken in the first round in over 25 years with under 31-inch arms, right, Geoff? So there's a reason that happens. So yes, it does worry you. And to me, I have a philosophy in the first round. And you know, I've been a bad golfer for 55 years, and I heard this person say that the way you get your handicap down, the first thing you have to do is figure out how not to get a double bogey, right? Get up on the tee and don't try to kill it and pull one into the woods for a penalty stroke. Don't get up for your second shot and shank it into the bunker. Draft philosophy is very much like that in my mind. In the first round, I always wanted to go safe, I called it. We wanted to make sure that we took the player with the least amount of questions and the highest percentage of really making an impact. And he didn't have to be a difference maker, but he had to have the skill set, the measurables, the production as a first-round player. And he probably had the least amount of question marks on him. So a guy like Rueben Bain, if you take him high, Geoff, if you take him in the top 10 and he doesn't play well, then everybody goes back and says, well, you didn't listen to the statistics. He's got 30-plus inch arms. So I think that would be a hard one for me to take high. I think that Rueben Bain's going to come and be a question of, where does his value in arm length coincide? And to me, if there's two players that are close, Rueben Bain and say Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles or anybody like that, I think I would go to the safer pick, the one that didn't have the big question mark. And I think that Rueben Bain is a terrific football player. He's one of the most intriguing players in the first round to me, because to see where he goes and how his career plays out because of the arm length, because he is a phenomenal football player. But Geoff, man, when there's short arms and you can extend and get into that guy's chest, it makes it extremely hard.
So our length discussion goes both ends, right? Defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive lineman. And basically it's a matter of who touches who first, right? I mean, the simplest way to block or to be blocked or to get off a block is make contact first, right? The player that makes contact first typically is the one who's going to win. If you have longer arms, you in theory should make contact first, right? If you have 35, if you're Lane Johnson and you got arms to your knees, you're going to be able to make contact with Rueben Bain before he makes contact with you. It's that simple. Right now, I think sometimes we should measure offensive linemen sort of from, the basically the end of the arm before the hand to the shoulder, right? Because when you punch, your arm is up, right? So it doesn't matter how big your hand is used for grabbing, right? More than maybe like the size of it for the punch. But nonetheless, if my arms are 33 inches and Rueben Bain's are under 31, I just have an advantage immediately off the snap because my arms are longer. Now, can you mitigate that if you're Rueben Bain? Absolutely, right? A couple of things. One, if you're quicker off the ball of the offensive lineman and you're able to get into his chest or get into his body before he's really set and ready to punch, that's one way to avoid that, right? Another way is a long arm, it's called, right? Where you can rush with two hands and make contact with two hands, or you turn your body sideways. I'll try to do this on camera best as possible. And you turn your body sideways and you reach one arm out. And when you do that, you're longer, right? You turn your chest a little bit. And so it makes it longer to get from me as an offensive lineman into your body. If you turn, think about DeMarcus Ware. He's the best guy to go watch if on YouTube if you want to watch a guy with a long arm. DeMarcus Ware was fantastic at it. Julius Peppers did. I mean, they didn't even need to do it, but they're really good at it, right? But again, that limits sort of what you can do, I think, as a defensive end if you can only win by long arm bull rush or getting into someone's chest as quick as possible. Now, the question I have with Bain is that, are there going to be teams that view him as a generational guy where that doesn't matter as much, and or a team like Kansas City, which I think is the most fascinating one in number 9, because they could be at 9 with an extreme need of pass rusher and Rueben Bain sitting right there at 9. And they're a team that's sort of a traits team as most teams are. Are they drafting a guy that doesn't really fit the historical comp of a good pass rusher when they desperately need a pass rusher, Marty?
And Kansas City is a unique example, Geoff, because if I was there, I would really trust what Steve Spagnuolo said as far as how he's going to use them. Really, at the end of the day, this is a matter of fit, right? And how you're going to use them and everything he said. But I think you have to give him more space, right? I mean, is he a better wide 9 or a 3-4 outside linebacker? Because it gives him some room to maneuver? Or is his strength and used more as in a regular alignment?
It's a good question. I think if you do a wide 9 with him, if the lineman gets to the point before he does, what's he going to do? He's not going to make contact. He's going to make contact too late. I think you put him in a regular alignment. And if you have him out wide, you essentially would have to just know he's not going to bull rush you, right? He's going to go outside. He's going to spin. He'll run down your middle and he'll try to make a move off your middle, which is certainly possible. So if you think you have a spot for him, absolutely. I mean, the Chiefs need a pass rush in the worst. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'd much rather take a chance on Rueben Bain than draft another offensive tackle that they don't really need right now. I mean, and that comes down to your draft board, right? Like, it's a bad way to draft. I get it, Marty. But
you can't. Yeah, that makes me. I'm all of a sudden my stomach's. I'm all jittery, Geoff. That I feel like I'm back in the draft room. Yeah, and you would do that because if you took him and he couldn't play, you'd be in the bathroom when I was up in front of everybody telling him why we took Rueben Bain and he didn't pan out. I would take the offensive lineman, especially in this draft. There's going to be an offensive lineman, a left tackle, or a right tackle or a really good guard. I would take the safer bet. Yeah. And if I was the Chiefs, and there are offensive linemen in the top 10 to me that are going to win ties with Rueben Bain all the way through because they're safer bets and you don't want to miss on a first round pick. We did a really good job at Carolina over a span of say 10 or so years. And really the diciest one was Jeff Otai, and we took Jonathan Stewart, the running back out of Oregon, 13th in that draft. And then we traded up because we loved Otai. And Jeff, Jeff Otai, I mean, physically, he could have been a perennial Pro Bowler and had a Hall of Fame talent. And it just, there were some things there that didn't work out. And You guys saw it, and the players saw it really before we saw it. But he had all the ability in the world, but he had some question marks that we felt comfortable with, but they became issues. So those are the things that you really have to look at. And, as a first-round pick, Jeff Otad's size, length, strength, everything, all the physical qualities were there. But he was the one guy who, he was with us for 3 or 4 years, but it's just he didn't make it because he had issues. So you have to look at every reason that somebody won't succeed. And with Rueben Bain, it's right there. It's the arm length. And he may turn out to be a great defensive end, but I just don't know whether I could use a top 10 pick on him with that question.
Let's turn to another defensive end that feels a little polarizing. That's David Bailey out of Texas Tech, where I think we have some people that think he's going to be drafted second overall, Marty, and some that view some of his limitations as a concern. He is a high twitch athlete. He is quick. He is explosive. He wins on his first pass rush move most often. He's not going to counter you very often. It's a spin. It's up the field. His Oregon film in the playoff game probably is propelling him much higher on draft boards than if he didn't have that game, Marty. What do you make of David Bailey at Texas Tech?
This player reminds me, and the things you said, Geoff, and listen, by no means am I comparing David Bailey to Julius Peppers, but I heard similar things with him coming out as far as, the questions of does he chase things down, and does he have a high enough motor, and all these questions about him. And basically I sat there and I asked the question, I said, listen, if we took him second overall, we had the second overall pick. Houston was the expansion team, and they took Carr, the quarterback. Said, if he comes in and will he come in and get 10 sacks this year? Oh, yeah, easily. He'll get 10. He can get 10 sacks in his sleep. Then what is your problem with this guy who can come in and get 10 sacks right off the bat? And David Bailey, I think, can do that. He's got the twitchiness. He's fast. He's got decent length. I think he's got all the traits as a pass rusher, Geoff. And that's really what you're drafting, is a guy who can get to the quarterback, disrupt, hit, make sacks. And I think David Bailey is a pretty safe bet to do that and make the transition to the NFL. He's got too many traits to do those things. So he would be a guy that I would feel very comfortable with picking in the top 5.
I think David Bailey is going to be a fantastic pro. I think you can't teach some of his twitchiness, and you can teach him the rushing passer. And you can teach him. And look, running down, the hustle thing is interesting to me, Mark. I do think in college sometimes, I don't know, we're up big. I'm not running after the running back. In the NFL, it's a little different. If you don't do that, your entire team chastises you. You know what I mean? Like, you have a veteran linebacker tells you, come on, Rook. Like, I think that part of it, guys, figure out pretty quickly. I think David Bailey is going to be a heck of a pro. Let's talk more pass rushers. We're starting with Faulk here with Auburn up next.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back here in the GM Shuffle talking edge rushers. We are wingbacks. We talk a lot, so we'll probably get to linebackers, Marty, next week, and defensive secondary pieces next week as we talk more about these defensive ends here. Let's talk about Faulk out of Auburn, 6'6", 276 here, big fella. Not a ton of sacks last season, only 2, and that brings me to a point here, just production-wise in college. So, when you see guys that don't have a lot of production in college with sack numbers, now pressures and sacks are different, obviously, but David Bailey had like 14 sacks last year. Rueben Bain had, I think, 10 plus sacks. Faulk had just 2 sacks last year. I think he had 5 total in his career. Is that a problem for you?
It's a problem if you're drafting them to sack the quarterback, but if you're drafting him to be a fit, and Geoff, to me, I think he's a 5 technique, isn't he? I mean, he's built like a 5 technique.
He's very big.
He's built like a 5 technique. He runs like a 5 technique. I think that it really is important for him to get with the right team in the right defense. I don't think he's an explosive edge rusher like a guy like David Bailey.
So 10 sacks over his career at Auburn, 7 last season. So 9 in the last 2 years. The five thing is interesting because we just don't see a ton of that defense anymore, Marty.
I know.
Where it's mostly wide nines and then 3-4 edge rushers. Now, when you play nickel, it's a 4-2-5, so you end up having sort of not 9 techniques, but they end up being wide pass rushers. So are you seeing him more as like a 3-4, like 5 technique? Like
that's what I see him as. And you
just
right.
don't have that.
No, we don't. That's why I really I'd get an early third day pick, Jeff. I think he's an early third day pick. And I think
for that right now,
he's going to go higher. But
5 technique.
I know. I was trying to think of one. I mean, and you could put him in as a 3, maybe, I guess, but he's just not your prototypical edge rusher, is he? I mean, he's going to do it with power and strength, but I mean, this is kind of a speed position we're looking for. We're looking for explosiveness off the edge and somebody who can chase down these mobile quarterbacks, and I just don't see him doing that. So I think that the key for him really is getting with a team that knows how they're going to play him, has the perfect fit to play him, and you're not looking for him to be explosive off the edge and make plays in space. But he is a very good football player.
Do you have him as a day 3 pick?
Probably day 2. I might be too tough, but I don't know whether I see him in the second round or not.
Oh, I think he might go into first round.
He's going first.
I think he might. He's only 20 years old. He's only 21, right?
Does he have the dynamic traits? Does he have the dynamic traits you're looking for at that position?
Not compared to other players, I don't think he does, right? I think that's what the question is, right? So can you find someone else, position, on your draft board, where is he at? We don't know. Cashius, Howell, Texas A&M, 6'3", 253, very productive last season, 11.5 sacks, sort of fits that mold of he's getting the quarterback, Marty. And so, he's right around the Von Miller size. He's not Von Miller, obviously, but right around that size, 6'3", 253.
He's kind of a tweener, Jeff. He's undersized. He's not really explosive. And again, I'm doing this thing where this time and I'm still used to it. You always poke holes in every player to see, okay, what are the reasons that he won't be able to succeed? But he's a playmaker. He makes a lot of plays. He's a very good football player. Got average athletic ability. As I said, he's not extremely explosive and quick, but he knows how to get to the quarterback. Again, I mean, I think that you're looking at a player like that. If you have somebody at another position that has, better measurables and as good as production, I think you go to that guy. I think that he has some upside, but he doesn't have all the traits you're necessarily looking for from an edge rusher.
A very fascinating prospect to me. And he's sort of a tweener, linebacker, pass rusher, is Oliver Reese from Ohio State, who I think if you're just listing prospects out and just doing a big board, he's in the top 5 easily, right? But I think the position he plays in the sport will be really telling. I've did a mock draft and I put out there that I feel he's a poor man's Micah Parsons, right? Where he played off the ball, but also rushed the passer and will transition, in my opinion, to be a pass rusher in the NFL. However, he's not Micah Parsons, right? Like he's not the type of bend, explosiveness. We saw very famously the pro day. He was doing that back drill, didn't look terribly good getting around the corner there. Where do you see him? Because again, I think he goes as high as 2 to the Jets. But if you don't have a position for him and a plan for him, it feels like he could kind of be lost on defense.
Yeah, I do think he's got a very good chance of going to the Jets at 2. And if he doesn't, I think I don't see him getting out of the top 5, Jeff. He's too good a player and he's got too much versatility and he is a good pass rusher. And I just think that I kind of have him penciled in right now at 2 with the Jets. It's here. Sonny Styles, I think, go 2. But he is a really good football player. Now, here's a guy who to me is a safe bet. So if I'm the Jets at 2, I'm really thinking long and hard about him because I think that it's hard to find a reason why he's not going to make it. He's got too much versatility. He's got too much too many physical traits. I really like this player, and I think I'd be surprised if he didn't go too.
So essentially, you could play him off the ball linebacker, which seems to be making a resurgence again. We'll talk about linebackers more in our next episode. So you play him off the ball linebacker, where I think we all feel it's going to be good. 70 tackles last season, 10 tackles for loss. Now, obviously, I think in college football, sacks and tackles for loss count as the same. So you get one sack, you get one tackle for loss, which I think is kind of backwards. And I don't know why you have to double count the stat, but it is what it is. So not a ton of extra tackles for loss, but 6.5 sacks. The video. So this is where a fun discussion happens, right? So I don't know if you saw the pro day, Marty, where he just didn't bend very well. There's a photo of Rueben Bain around the corner where he's bending and he's like super low. The ground looks straight. And Reese, and look, they're doing a little bit different of a drill. When you put on Reese's film, Marty, and it shows on film. So like this is a classic situation where it's like, how much does the pro day matter when you see it with your own eyes in person versus how much does the film matter to your evaluation?
Well, the film and seeing them live, Geoff, during the season. And to me, I always thought that was critical, okay? And the first thing I would do after that workout, you bring in the scouts that went to see him live and saw him play live in games and say, did you see this on the field? Did you see this when you were up close and personal with him? And if they say no, then you don't worry about it. I mean, you have to really consider everything that you see and hear about a player. But if you don't see it on the field, and that's why I think it's so important to see guys live up close, and your scouts will have seen that. And if they say, yeah, I did see that there, okay, then that's something to take consideration of. But I didn't see it on tape, and if they didn't see it at the field, then I don't think it's an issue.
I'm not really concerned about it either. TJ Parker, from Clemson, Marty, is a guy that you highlighted here. I think he's kind of all over the board where people sort of like him. 5 sacks last season, a 6'4", 263. Clemson has produced a lot of good defensive linemen. Does that matter to you that a school produces a lot of good pros at a position?
Yes. I think that now I'm not saying it's right or not, but it's human nature, right, Geoff? If you go to a school that you've had success with at a certain position or other teams have had success with, and then a school that really hasn't put out many guys, that's definitely a consideration. And again, in the first round, it goes to who the safer pick is, and that would concern me. But TJ Parker, again, Clemson puts out a ton of defense linemen. I love this guy. I love his effort, his motor. He's 6'3.5", 265. And, he ran a 4.71, but he is just such a physical, high motor guy, Geoff. I really like this guy. I think he's a day 2 pick, but he's a really good football player. I like him a lot.
The other guy that I want to discuss with you is Messidor out of Miami, Akeem Messidor. So I'm a highly productive player in college, 12.5 sacks last season, 6'3", almost 260, but 25 years old, Marty. How much is that talked about in the draft room?
A lot. I mean, age does matter. This is a good football player who really doesn't wow you, though, does he, Geoff? I mean, he doesn't have those traits, I don't think, that really come out, wow you, but he's a very solid football player. So I think he's a great pick at the right spot. I'm not exactly sure. I'm having a hard time placing him right now, where to put him, but he is a very good football player. And listen, after you get through the first round, and even the top half of the first round, the things like age and those type of things start to matter less and less. So if you think he can come in and help you right away and play 5 or 6 years, then you're fine with taking him at the right spot.
Yeah, it is interesting to see sort of where people have these guys sort of penciled in and what their best position is. We didn't get to do a lot of D tackles, unfortunately, today, Marty. Is there a defensive tackle interior guy that you just love on film?
There really isn't, Geoff. I haven't looked a lot at those guys yet. But to me, there again, that's a guy that those are the guys that I think are very undervalued, right? I mean, I'm still old school, Geoff, and it's still about stopping the run first, right? And I know you have to get get pushed inside. But if you have a tackle who can get pushed inside and make a guy get off the spot and leave the pocket, that's what you're looking for. I have not seen a lot of guys that have jumped out to me there, but I got to do a better job of looking at that position.
I think two guys are probably going in the first round. Peter Woods from Clemson. I think Caden McDonald from Ohio State is probably going in the first round, are my two guesses. Lee Hunter from Texas Tech is interesting to me. I don't know if he's a first round pick because, to your point about, he can stop the run, but the rushing the passer will have to, I think, grow into that, even though he's a very active player. Very active player. But again, you're right. He moved a lot at Texas Tech. That's how he won a lot of his reps, was stunting and moving around. It wasn't just one-on-one, rush the passer, or maybe other guys. But McDonald, just his size, I think that he's the guy you looked at as a sort of run stuffer to pass rusher. We'll be back next week, guys, covering linebackers, off-the-ball linebackers, and secondary pieces. Mock draft in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone. Have a good week. We're out.